Hi, everyone. It is Tanya Hertz here. I am your assistant professor of entrepreneurship and business management at San Diego Miramar College and lecturer of entrepreneurship, San Diego State University. I also am the director of the Rec Innovation Lab at Miramar. So let's get started talking about ability. And we're talking about ability because we are looking at what is the effect that cognitive ability, emotional ability, physical ability has on job performance and on organizational commitment? Why does it matter? Why do we care about this, right? So let's go ahead and get started by defining some terms. When we're talking about ability, it's a little bit more stable. It's not as changing as some of the other variables that we've looked at to date. And this is that stable sort of capability that people tend to have that allows them to perform a variety of different activities and different tasks. And these are largely a function of our, just like many things, genetics and the environment, including family environment, the quality and the quantity of schooling, the choice of occupation that you may make, any biological hazards like exposure to asbestos or exposure to, well, actually the number one cause of low cognitive ability in children who are, when it is not a genetic cause, is actually fetal alcohol syndrome. So those kinds of things can make a big difference in cognitive ability. Cognitive ability has a large genetic component, larger than some of the other things that we've looked at. More than 50% of our cognitive ability comes from our mom and dad, our genetics, right? 50-50. That impact, though, of that of our genetics and of the family environment tends to decrease as we get older, right? Then it matters more about our choice, what we've decided to do, what we've decided to study, the groups that we decide to be in. I think that makes a lot of sense, just intuitively, but research also supports that. So the most important facet of ability is our cognitive ability. And in terms of business, in the business setting, it's more important than obviously physical ability or other types of ability for the most part. And when we're looking at cognitive ability, we can break it down into 5 main facets. And those include verbal ability, quantitative, reasoning, spatial, and perceptual ability. And we'll go through them one by one and talk about what they mean, starting with the verbal ability. So verbal ability is the ability for a person to express their ideas in words in a clearly understandable manner, having good vocabulary, good sentence forming skills. Verbal ability also is, it's not just related to our ability to express, but also our ability to understand. And there are 4 main facets within that verbal ability facet. And those include oral comprehension, so understanding when somebody speaks to us, written comprehension, understanding what we're reading, oral expression, right? Being able to articulate our ideas clearly and concisely, and then written expression, so our ability to write clearly and concisely. Now, are all 4 of those facets correlated? What does research say? What do you think? The answer is absolutely. Yes, they're correlated. 100% they're correlated. When people are good at writing, they're more likely good at speaking. When people can understand what you're saying, they can usually also understand what you write. Sometimes they're not correlated, though. There are times when they're not correlated. And what do we call it when there's that lack of correlation, when the 4 facets just don't go together? Well, very often it's because of a disability, and that disability is typically dyslexia. And what's really interesting is there's been a lot of research into dyslexia and business success, primarily looking at dyslexia and millionaires, dyslexia and entrepreneurs, dyslexia and creativity. And there are a lot of really interesting findings. This recent finding found that 35% of entrepreneurs in the United States suffer from dyslexia. 35%, 1 in 3, over 1 in 3, compared to about 20% in the UK. I'm not sure what that's about, but we do know that both are significantly higher than the general population. It's only about 8% in the general population. Another study that was recently done, this pretty popular study, is that 40% of all of the self-made millionaires in the United Kingdom are dyslexic, right? And I don't want to speculate as to why this is, but there has been some research showing the correlations between dyslexia and creativity and problem-solving skills and being able to look at problems differently, which is a big part of being an entrepreneur, right? So it was just really interesting. I wanted to share that there. The second facet of cognitive ability is quantitative ability. That includes both number facility and mathematical reasoning. And number facility, it's your ability to facilitate numbers and do what you want with them. Basically, can you do a mathematical equation? Where mathematical reasoning is your ability to choose which equation to actually use in a problem when a problem presents itself. I always think of the two as number facility is like a number problem on a math test, where mathematical reasoning would be more of a word problem on a math test, right? Reasoning also comes into play when we're talking about cognitive ability. Problem sensitivity, deductive reasoning, inductive reasoning, and originality, thinking of things in a new way. So deductive versus inductive reasoning. This is often people get these a little bit confused, but deductive is when we start with the hypothesis, with the key topic, and then we support that with evidence, with assertions that that we look up, what we find, and that we can basically gather to support what we're what we're trying to prove. Where inductive reasoning is where you start with all of the pieces and you let those pieces guide you to to then eventually end up at that final conclusion, right? I don't know if I'm explaining it very well. Okay, I'll give you an example. So police officers versus judges, right? So police officers, would they use deductive reasoning or inductive reasoning? So we would hope that they would use inductive reasoning, right? Inductive reasoning, so that they would not start with the end results and say, hey, this is what this is our hypothesis, and let's find evidence to support that. We hope police would never do that. We would hope that they would just let the evidence guide them to an end result, where a judge would obviously use deductive reasoning because they have the end result that's presented to them by the lawyers and by the public defender and prosecutor, and then they take all that evidence and see if they can support that assertion. Maybe that makes more sense, right? And problem sensitivity is just your ability to know whether or not something is an actual problem, and to recognize that quickly. And we'll get into that a little bit later, but originality, I think that makes sense. Originality is thinking like yourself, uniquely, and not just following a prescribed pattern. Spatial ability is the fourth facet, and that includes both spatial organization and visualization. Spatial organization, it's also called proprioception. Proprioception is your ability to kind of recognize where your body is in space. Dancers have a high level of spatial ability. So do pilots, right? I always had trouble with this as a pilot. I would get lost all the time. And there's those people who are really good at directions, and it's like they just always know where they are, and they always know where true north is. Not me. I'm always like, where the heck am I? Get that map out, look at it again, right? Yeah. But I do score very high in visualization. So I can picture something that has not been created yet. And this is really, you see this a lot with people who are in things like interior design, in engineers have a high level of visualization. They can picture what the end project should look like. Perceptual ability is your ability to, how fast can you perceive that something is going on, right? the speed of perception, and then also your flexibility of actually being able to react to it. So you hear a burp, burp, burp. What is it? Quickly deal with it and figure it out. Sully, right? I always think of Captain Sully, who landed the passenger plane full of people that would have otherwise died if he was not such an amazing pilot and had such a high level of perceptual ability, and could say, wow, that beeping light is because one of the engines must have gone out. I think we hit a bird. What am I going to do? I'm going to land this in the, in the Hudson River and save everyone's life. So, and it's important. Different types of ability are important in different types of jobs. And I think we can see that pretty easily. And you can think about different, pilots, professors, interior designers, a yoga instructor. What are the different facets of cognitive ability that are most important for each of the different jobs? And there's actually, you can actually look this up, and there's a test that you can use if you're hiring people for a job to see where they score in each of the different facets, and then hire the right person for the job. So one of the tests that we use is called the Wonderlic personnel test. Not personality. Ability is different than personality. The Wonderlic personnel test is a test of 50 questions. You only get 12 minutes to answer all 50 questions, and a score of 20 is the same as if you got that basic 100 score in an IQ test, which is the average score that people get. And a score of 10 just indicates basic literacy. So I can read, I can write, that's it. That's a score of 10. And you might recognize this test because this is a test that they give to football players, and to see where they are in terms of intelligence when they start versus when they end. And their cognitive ability typically declines in football because of head trauma, which is a shame and a totally other issue. So let's practice this. What's the right answer here? Which of the three following words have similar meanings? Observable, manifest, hypothetical, indefinite, and theoretical? Which of the three? I hope that you said CDE, right? If and that's about as long as you get to answer it. You have about 20 seconds per question. Okay. What's the right answer? Oh, and what facet was being measured there? What are we trying to find here? Well, it was both. It's verbal understanding or verbal ability, and since I spoke it, it's both oral and written comprehension. So, which of the following? So what's the right answer? A featured product from an internet retailer generated 29, 99, 80, 115, and 213 orders over a 5-hour period. Which graph shows that, right? Which graph shows that? I think it's pretty easy to see this one, right? And it's D, right? It's D because you have small, big, lower, big, big, right? So D. Which of the following, if the first two statements are true, is the final statement true? So Sandra is responsible for ordering office supplies. Notebooks are office supplies. Sandra is responsible for ordering notebooks. Is that true? Yes, no, uncertain? Well, yeah. And what are we looking at here? It's reasoning, right? It's deductive reasoning. Okay. Which of the three choices are needed to create the figure on the left? Only pieces of the same color may overlap. So look at these. KLM. No, yeah, KLM. I hope you got that. And then finally, which of the following is the earliest date? I think it would be, is it E? Yeah, 1889. Yep, and January is before February. Yep, so it'd be E. Right? Yeah. That's about how fast you do it. 50 is a perfect score. If you get 50 out of 50, very few people get 50 out of 50. I thought this was really interesting. I looked at the scores for the NFL for the last, this is the average for the last, I think 10 years, something like this. And these are the scores that different positions get. And I thought it was interesting, the closer that you actually are to the ball, typically the higher your score. And here are some minimum scores for different jobs. You can see mechanical engineers typically won't get hired unless they have a score of at least 30. Attorneys, 29, teachers, 27, although that's minimum. Many of us score a lot higher than that. This is a little scary to me. 22 for police officers, barely above average. Cashier is about 20, about average. So like I said, different positions will have different minimum thresholds. This is important to test, and we'll talk about more of it later. We're going to come back and talk about the rest of the different types of ability in another video. So I'm going to leave you with this question. Think of people who are really smart. Are all of them successful? Well, I'm sure that the answer to that is no. I mean, for me, I can think of plenty of people who are smart but not successful. Why? What's holding them back? What is it about them that's making them not successful? All right, I'm going to leave it there, and we'll come back and talk to you at the next video.